Hi and welcome. My name's Debbie Pendergrast. I'm Business Development Manager here at Keencut and I'm going to be your host for this particular session today. In the studio joining me as ever is Curtis, my producer.
Hi guys, so I'm Curtis. So I just want to let you guys know that throughout this session, we will be watching the live chat function on the YouTube stream. So if there are any questions you have about the session that we're talking about, or just Keencut in general, then do put those questions into that chat box and do make sure you are signed into the YouTube and to your account so you do have access to that chat function.
Thanks, Curtis.
Brilliant, thank you.
In today's session, I'm going to be taking you over how to correctly cold cut textiles on the Keencut cutter bars. Now, I'm going to be using, in particular, the Evolution3 range of models. So that includes the freehand that we have here, the Evolution benchtop and the Evolution SmartFold. With those particular cutters, we're going to be using the fabric tool head, which is an optional extra for that range. And I'm also going to be taking you over how to correctly cold cut textiles using the Keencut Sabre. Now, you will be requiring a couple of things for this particular session. Clearly, there is the optional extra of the fabric tool head. So if you do and you are cutting delicate materials, things like foils, papers, plastics, fabrics, textiles, those type of things, this is a really beneficial tool for you to be using. I'm going to be using in this session for the Evolution3 benchtop and the Evolution3 freehand, these particular size of cutter bars. These are working size, they are working models. They are a smaller size. They're demonstration models, so they're about 70 centimeters in length. They're fully working, so they will show you exactly their capabilities and how to use the machine. I have these sizes specifically for demonstration purposes, because if I had a range of 6 full-size cutter bars, I think I would run out of some space. So they're 70 centimeters in length. The normal size we start at for the Keencut Evolution3 and Keencut Sabre series are 1 meter 10 and 1 meter respectively, but these are really handy for these particular sessions. Now we're going to start with the Evolution3 freehand, which is this particular cutter bar here. What this does is it's a portable machine, so you can transport it, you can take it places. It's not meant to be installed on any particular benchtop to be fixed. It's a portable machine and you can store it out of the way once you have finished using it. The default cutting head for the Keencut Evolution3 series is this one here. This is a double graphic blade head. It has 2 blades that operate independently of each other. So that is the default cutting head for the freehand, the benchtop and the SmartFold itself. As I've mentioned, for this we are going to be using this head. This is the fabric tool head. It's a detachable head, as all of the heads are on the Evolution3 range. They all come off completely and they all have steel bearings. So that means that the heads that we produce in future are all backwards compatible to our Keencut Evolution3 series, and you can purchase just the head as an optional extra, the fabric head, should you be requiring it for your Evolution3 cutter bar to cut delicate fabrics and textiles. With the Evolution3 freehand, because it is a portable cutter bar, you have to take into consideration that when you engage the blades, they will be protruding from the bottom of the bar, and that means that whatever you happen to have your bar placed on top of and over the media that you are cutting, the blade will engage with the surface underneath that. That means if you don't protect that surface, you're going to be cutting into either the tabletop that you're using, or if you're using it on the floor, or the floor tiles, or the carpet. So you need something to protect that surface. That would be a cutting mat. So I have a cutting mat here. This is going to enable me to actually protect the surface that I'm going to be cutting on top of. In this case, it's my bench top. I can put my cutting mat on top of my bench top and I can feed my material in. Now the material that I'm using today is a J&M Media Text light fabric. It's unprinted, so I have taken the liberty of actually putting in some black lines as crop lines so I know exactly where I'm going to be lining up and cutting to. As this is a portable machine, I will need to place this on top of the fabric and on top of the cutting mat. So before I do any cutting in the first place, I will need to actually remove the head, which is really, really easy because all you need to do is remove the headstop, take the head to the end of the bar and just remove it. The Keencut fabric tool head has a rotary blade. The blade itself is actually protected. It has a red guard on it. Upon receiving the fabric tool head, as the guard is still in place, we will need to expose the blade here. In order to do that, we unscrew the silver screw here and slide back the red guard so we expose the blade. We need to re-tighten the silver screw, but only to just as it engages and catches. We don't want it too tight, otherwise the blade itself won't actually rotate. The fabric tool head also has the capacity to regulate the tension and make it firmer or looser as the wheel drops down or goes upwards. So we can regulate that with this particular screw here. Once we have the Evolution3 freehand ready, we can put it on top of the material and we need to take away the original cutting head that comes on the cutter bar itself, which is the graphic blade head. So remove the headstock, take the double graphic blade head off and just slide in the fabric head. So I'm going to just turn everything around because it makes things easier for me to be able to cut. Just slide the material towards me. Now, as you can see, my cutting mat is shorter than the material itself. So it's really important to actually have a cutting surface which is longer than the material. Otherwise, you are looking at moving both the material from the support of the cutting mat and also the cutting bar. It's nice if you have a cutting bar that isn't quite as long as the material because you do get a continuous cut. So the freehand will give you a continuous cut because you will be able to consistently move the freehand along the material and line it up and continue to cut. But it's imperative that you have a cutting mat that is at least longer than the material you're cutting, or that you are able to easily align the material, otherwise it might take longer than you expected. So lining up the machine on the cutting mat, taking into consideration that the cutting head itself will start at one point, so it's not all the way towards the end of the cutter bar. So I need to just slide my material down a little bit. I can align up my sightline strip with my cut lines because I can see where my cut lines need to be. I can see where the blade is going to be passing because I have my sight line, so I can just line things up. And engaging the cutting head onto the mat, starting to cut across. I can now move my material up so I have it towards the end of the material and it's still supported by the cutting mat. Replace my cutter bar, realign my sightline strip up with my crop marks, push down and continue the cut. And there you have the material that's cut to the crop lines and ultra precise. That is exactly the same process with the bench top. With the Keencut Evolution3 bench top, the process, as I've mentioned, is exactly the same, except we will need a cutting mat to support underneath the cutting groove that's integrated into the bench top itself. So it has a clamping system. The clamp lifts up and hovers wherever you leave it on its trajectory towards the material itself, making it really easy to align something. But as I've mentioned, we'll need a cutting mat for this particular machine. So I'm going to just slide the cutting mat in. My material that I have is slightly too long, so I'm going to have to cut it in 2 pieces. And I will also need to change the default cutting head of the double graphic blade head. So just slide that off after you've removed the headstop, slide on the rotary cutter, replace the headstop, slide in your cutting mat that you have. So the cutting mat makes sure that the blade will not fall into the cutting groove, so it won't collapse, and it will support the material from underneath and enable you to have that straight cut. So placing the cutting mat underneath the cutter bar, then sliding the material in. Again, I have my crop marks, so I know exactly where I'm going to be cutting. I can lower, let's just straighten that, so I can lower my cutting head, my clamp down to almost gripping the material. Just lower it a little bit further. And I can see where my cut line is going to be. So once I'm happy with that, engaging all the way, starting on the cut, and there I have my material. With the Smart Fold, the process is exactly the same. So the Smart Fold is great because once you have finished using it, it folds down away under the bench, which means you can use the whole of the rest of your bench, as I have been doing, but I need it engaged for this particular demonstration. So folding it back into position, it has the double graphic blade head that I need to remove and place instead the rotary head, replace the headstop, push the clamp upwards, which enables us to have more ease to push back the cutter bar, push down on the button on either side to reveal the material, the integrated material cutting strip. So because the Smart Fold has an integrated material cutting strip all the way along the cutter bar, I don't need to worry about having a cutting mat underneath the rotary head, because it's there for me to use. So I can cut a piece of material as long as the machine itself. So again, the process is exactly the same. Lift up the clamp, slide the fabric in. I know where I'm going to be cutting because I have my sightline strip, so I'm just going to move my head out of the way. I'm going to lower the clamp to as far down as I need it to go, so that it gives me the opportunity to align my sightline strip up to my crop marks without actually engaging the clamp all the way down. Once I'm happy with the positioning of my material, I can clamp all the way down, engage the rotary head and go along, and I have my ultra precise piece of fabric. The Sabre is a slightly different machine. It comes with 3 different types of blade holders. It comes with a medium duty blade holder, a rotary blade holder for the delicate materials, and a graphic blade holder that will be installed on the machine. So the first thing you need to do is actually change the blade holder itself. To change the blade holder, we're just going to undo these silver screws here. Not all the way, just enough to loosen the blade holder itself. Pull it up and slide it off. And insert the rotary head. Now the rotary head has a safety function. The cover has to be in this position. Here we have a cutout for the screw to be able to pass the screw here, which means that the blade has to be covered for safety. If the blade is anywhere else, then the red is protruding here and it physically will not go on the head itself. So this is the default position to put the rotary blade head onto the blade holder. So just wiggle it on, push it down, make sure that it's sitting flat, and screw up the silver screws. Once you've screwed up the silver screws, you can unshield the blade. So the blade is now exposed and we are good to cut. However, because the Sabre also has a cutting channel, a cutting groove, if we don't support it from underneath, the material is going to collapse into that groove and we're not going to get a straight cut. So again, we need a cutting mat. Lifting up the clamp, sliding in the cutting mat. We can then, the cutting mat can go this way. We can then insert the material underneath the clamp, and so it goes on top of the cutting mat. The Sabre isn't as precise as the Keencut Evolution3 series. They are precise to a 0.2 millimeter precision over the whole length of the cut. The Sabre itself is precise only to 1 millimeter over the length of the cut, which is still pretty precise. It also doesn't have the ability to have the lift and hover function or the precision of the sightline strip. So it's a little bit more fiddly to try and align up with my crop lines. So it takes a little bit more time. But once I am happy with that, then I can engage my rotary head on the polymer bearing. So it's not as smooth as the Evolution3 because they are plastic bearings rather than steel bearings. It's not as precise, but it still gives you a really good cut. And that is how you use the Keencut optional fabric tool head for the Keencut Evolution3 series of cutter bars and the blade holding rotary head for the Keencut Sabre to correctly cold cut textiles. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you found this enjoyable. If you have any questions or any queries, then please do let us know. You can find us on social media. We are on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And all these videos we upload and leave housed on our Keencut YouTube channel. So do feel free to subscribe to those. That way you get notifications for future videos that we will be releasing. Our next session is going to be on the 11th of May, and I will be covering all the aspects and how versatile the Keencut Simplex is. So I really hope that you'll join me then. Many thanks for your time. I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. Curtis, would you like to say goodbye?
Bye guys, hope you've enjoyed the session. Look forward to seeing you again next time.
Thanks very much for your time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.